to this episode of the Hormone Café. Today, we're going to talk about how to support your adrenal glands throughout the day. And you might say, Dr. P, what exactly are my adrenal glands? Your adrenal glands are part of your endocrine system, which means they're part of your hormone system. And there are these little glands that are actually located in your back on top of your kidneys. And why we know them is because they help us regulate cortisol and our stress levels, in addition to other things. So today, I want to help you understand what adrenal fatigue, or what we call HPA axis imbalance, actually means, how your cortisol should function throughout the day, some common cortisol pattern imbalances, and then daily habits that I want you to start that can restore a healthy cortisol rhythm. Many women who are trying to conceive or balance their hormones feel exhausted but wired, struggle with sleep, defend on caffeine, or just feel like their body is stuck in stress mode. A big piece of that puzzle is often our cortisol rhythm and how our adrenal glands are functioning. So what some people call adrenal fatigue isn't that your adrenal glands stop working. It's usually more accurate to think of it as what we call HPA axis dysregulation. H stands for hypothalamus, P stands for pituitary, A stands for adrenal glands. That means that the communication between our brain and our adrenal glands is becoming disrupted. So HPA axis means our hypothalamus talks to our pituitary. Those are both in our brain. Pituitary talks to our adrenal glands, which are above our kidneys. Adrenal glands help with our cortisol regulation. So this system controls how our bodies respond to stress, how it regulates our blood sugar, affects our sleep, and plays a huge role in our reproductive hormones. Why does cortisol matter for fertility and hormone balance? Chronic stress and cortisol dysregulation can really affect our ovulation and our estrogen and progesterone levels, because cortisol suppresses our body's ability to produce hormones. It can also affect our thyroid function, our insulin sensitivity. It can cause inflammation and really affect our sleep quality. So our body prioritizes survival over reproduction. So if our nervous system is constantly seeing stress, if we're constantly in this fight or flight mode, we're going to down-regulate our reproductive hormones. So that's when we see what those low hormone patterns or dysfunctional ovulation, because our body's putting all of its energy into making cortisol and not into making our estrogen, our progesterone, our testosterone. So cortisol balance is super important for our hormone health and for conception. Let's talk about our ideal cortisol rhythm and how cortisol should work. So healthy cortisol levels follow our circadian rhythm. So in the morning, our cortisol sharply rises. So within an hour of waking up, usually that's around 8 a.m. in the morning, but it depends on the time of year and your specific schedule, your cortisol should rise sharply. It's called a cortisol awakening response. So cortisol in general is not a bad thing, right? We actually need cortisol in the morning. We want our cortisol levels to be high. What is a bad thing is dysregulated cortisol levels, because some people instantly associate cortisol with stress. Yes, it's associated with stress, but there is good and healthy levels of cortisol. So in the morning, we have our highest level of cortisol. And then midday, we have a gradual decline. And then in the evening, our cortisol level should be really low. And at night, cortisol is at its lowest level, because at night, that's when we want our melatonin production to go up, because that is what promotes a healthy sleep. So cortisol acts like the sun. It rises in the morning to wake you up, and then it gradually sets throughout the day and is gone in the night. That is the rhythm that we want to promote. If our cortisol has that beautiful curve where it's high in the morning and low at night, that will support our energy levels, our focus, our metabolism, our sleep, and our hormone balance. So let's talk about the four different dysregulated cortisol patterns. So there is cortisol testing that we do. Usually you want to do a salivary cortisol testing. So for example, like a Dutch test or a 4-point saliva cortisol, because this will reveal the different patterns about your cortisol. So let's talk about high cortisol. If this is in just when you're a kind of person where your cortisol is just really, really high throughout the entire day. So symptoms of this are going to be that wired but tired feeling, anxiety, having a racing mind, trouble falling asleep, waking up a lot at night, just feeling on edge, having an elevated heart rate, or just feeling generally irritable throughout the entire day. So drivers of this high cortisol pattern are things like just chronic stress, where no matter what time of day it is, you have some kind of stressor going on, overtraining, you're using too much of your energy reserves in your body, excessive caffeine, you're just drinking way too much coffee or tea throughout the day, big blood sugar swings, or sleep deprivation. Let's talk about pattern number 2, which is low cortisol. So when we talk about pattern number 1, this is an early stress phase. Pattern number 2 is a prolonged stress phase. These types of symptoms are fatigue all day long, difficulty waking up, low motivation, brain fog, dizziness when standing, craving salt, afternoon crashes, and needing caffeine in order to function. So these type of patients often say things like, I wake up tired and I just stay tired the entire day long. So sometimes we'll have an acute stressor, we'll just feel stressed all day long. And sometimes we have these chronic stressors. We've been just stressed for so long. We're super burnt out. Our cortisol levels are actually low throughout the entire day. And then there's pattern 3, which is called a flat cortisol curve, meaning it still has a curve, but it's just the whole thing is lower than the regular curve. So symptoms of this are persistent fatigue, low resilience to stress, burnout, poor exercise recovery, low mood, and poor focus. So this pattern can appear after years of chronic stress where your body is able to function a bit, but it's not functioning at its maximum capacity. And then there's pattern number 4, which is the inverted cortisol rhythm. So it's low in the morning and high at night. So symptoms of this are we're exhausted during the day, and then we have this big energy surge at night. How many of us are night owls where 4 o'clock hits, we're super tired, we want to take a nap, the clock hits like 9, 10 o'clock, and we are wide awake, amped, ready to go, ready to work. Those are our inverted cortisol rhythm people. So energy surge at night, trouble falling asleep, waking between 1 and 3 a.m., and then racing thoughts at bedtime. So this is really common in women in juggling. Work stress, for example, sleep disruption, maybe parenting. This is related to blood sugar dysregulation and having low blood sugar in the middle of the night. So if you're worried that your cortisol is dysregulated, let's definitely get it tested. So this is going to involve a salivary test where you actually check your cortisol levels at different times throughout the day, because then we can pinpoint, okay, which pattern are you? Are you a pattern you're just high all the time, you're low all the time, you have a curve, but the curve is low, or you're totally an inverted curve. Your cortisol is low in the morning and then high at night. So let's figure out what your cortisol pattern is, figure out what the drivers are so that we can actively work to help balance your cortisol levels throughout the day. So let me give you some tips. We'll talk about some daily habits just to support our adrenal function, support our proper cortisol promotion throughout the day. So morning habits. You want to get morning light within 30 minutes of waking up. Natural light really helps our cortisol awakening response, our circadian rhythm, our melatonin production. So if you can, you want to get up and then either open a window, open the curtain. Ideally, we would go outside, be in the sunshine, go have your breakfast outside, that kind of a thing, because you want to regulate your cortisol production now and then your melatonin production later. So even 5-10 minutes being outside helps. The second thing that I want you to do is I want you to eat protein within 1 hour of waking up. All those people out there who are not eating breakfast, you are now eating breakfast. You are now a breakfast eater. It's extremely important. The first thing I want you to put onto your body is protein, and I want you to put it in within 60 minutes of waking up. Skipping breakfast will definitely worsen your cortisol imbalance. Protein helps stabilize our blood sugar and prevent cortisol spikes. So you really want to be doing 20 to 30 grams of protein within 60 minutes of waking up. It can be eggs, full fat plain Greek yogurt, some kind of a protein smoothie that you make yourself with high quality, no added sugar, protein powder, cottage cheese, chia seed pudding with some seed butters and nuts. Just make sure that the first thing you put in your body is protein. The third thing that I want you to do is delay caffeine. You're going to say, oh my gosh, Dr. Pete, you're so cruel. You really, really want to make sure that you're doing protein and then coffee, not coffee and then protein. You must put something in your body, then you can drink your coffee later. Caffeine immediately on waking will amplify your cortisol spike and then you crash. So then you get into this rhythm where you have this crazy amount of cortisol from the caffeine and then it crashes and then you feel exhausted and then you need to drink coffee again. So then we have our coffee again in a few hours and then our cortisol spikes and then it crashes. And then we have this horrible afternoon slump where we have to have another cup of coffee. So having caffeine right away without putting food into our body will put us on this caffeine cortisol roller coaster. Will have multiple crashes throughout the day. So if you're going to drink caffeine, please wait 60 to 90 minutes after you wake up, because this allows your natural cortisol rise to occur and then we don't get the crash. It's not that you can't drink caffeine. It's just that you have to delay your caffeine later in the morning and make sure you eat a good high quality breakfast first. Okay. Let's talk about our midday habits. So we really, of course, want to keep our blood sugar balanced because large blood sugar swings will also stress our adrenal glands and our adrenal system. So every time we eat, we always want to make sure we have fiber, we have protein. We want to pair our protein to carbohydrates in a 1-to-1 ratio. We want to have healthy fats. So that's our butter, our olive oil, our avocado. And then we want to have our slow carbohydrates, our high quality carbs that have a lot of fiber in them. So that reduces our cortisol spikes. Another thing that you want to do is take small stress breaks. So we don't want to have this chronic sympathetic activation because that will drive our cortisol imbalance. It's kind of like having a lot of coffee. If we're just constantly focused, constantly stressed, our cortisol is going to rise and then we're going to rise and crash. And that's why when we're just super uber focused and stressed the entire day, we'll have this crash. We feel like we need caffeine. So it's really important to take short resets throughout your day to help regulate your nervous system. So example could be you go on a 5-minute walk, right? You have lunch, you go on a walk around your office, you go on a walk outside, you take your dog for a walk. It's helpful to do breathing exercises. Just have an app on your phone, turn on a breathing exercise, stretching or light yoga is helpful, or just going outside. So even 2 to 3 short resets every day could help. It actually really helps to schedule these into your day. If it's not on your calendar, if it's not a part of your routine, it's not something you're going to be able to do regularly. So you want it to always constantly be in a routine, right? Okay, I do 2 hours of work. I go outside and take a teeny break. I do 2 hours of work. I eat lunch. I go on a walk. In the afternoon, I have my high protein snack. I do some stretching. Incorporate it into the routine of your day. Another thing you want to be doing is exercise appropriately, okay? Exercise is wonderful and it can really help you balance your cortisol. However, if you're over exercising or exercising too hard, or you're exercising fasting, meaning you don't have enough food in your system, exercise can actually make your cortisol much worse. So you really want to make sure you're doing things like strength training, walking, moderate intensity workouts. You can do excessive HIIT. You can do long, intense cardio sessions, but you don't want to do those if you are just a super low cortisol person, or if you're a low hormone person, or if those things just burn you and exhaust you out. So it's extremely important to know your hormone profile, know your cortisol profile, so you can know how to exercise for your body, because you don't want exercise to make your cortisol worse. You want exercise to make your cortisol better. It's not that we shouldn't do any exercise, because it is extremely therapeutic to be exercising to move our body. We just want to do it in a way that enhances our natural circadian rhythm and doesn't burn us out. So maybe you are a person that can do HIIT workouts. You just want to make sure you're doing them at a time and with food in our bodies, so that's not increasing our cortisol. If you're a person where a HIIT workout just completely exhausts and burns you out, then you want to do something gentler: yoga, Pilates, bar, strength training, something that makes you happy, brings you joy, but doesn't make you feel exhausted. So definitely exercising for your body's cortisol and hormone profile will help you optimize your cortisol throughout the day. Let's talk about our evening habits. So it's really important to reduce evening stimulation. This is really hard for a lot of people. It's really hard for me. I'm a huge night owl. I love working into the night. Screens are my best friend at 10 a.m., but not anymore, because High evening cortisol disrupts sleep, and sleep is the cornerstone of health. So establishing good sleep hygiene and good sleep routines is essential for maintaining our cortisol balance, because we literally need to train our brains to shut our cortisol down. So a bummer is that screens activate our cortisol. So if we're using screens late at night, we're going to activate our cortisol. It's going to give us a harder time going to sleep, and then we're going to wake up feeling exhausted. So if you're a person who says, okay, I have to work at night, then you want to get a pair of blue light glasses so that the light from the screen is not affecting you. So things that you want to do are starting 1 to 2 hours before you go to bed. So ideally we're in bed at around 10 o'clock. So around 8 o'clock, we want to dim our lights. We want to minimize our screen exposure. Definitely no screens an hour before bed. Don't do intense work late. So we need to be finishing up all work by 9 o'clock. And we definitely do not want to be doing caffeine after noon. So only caffeine in the morning, no caffeine afternoon. The last thing that we want to do is spike our cortisol in the middle of the day or at night, because that's really hard to retrain our brains to bring our cortisol levels down, because then no matter what, we're going to be feeling exhausted and drained when we wake up. So we also want to support nighttime parasympathetic activity. That's our calming, our comforting, our feeling safe. Our nervous system needs to feel that it's safe to rest. So things that are helpful are to take magnesium. I usually recommend about 400 to 600 milligrams of magnesium at night. It's helpful to do something not on a screen, like read, stretch, journal, take a warm bath, use Epsom salts, use essential oils. These things can help your cortisol drop and your melatonin rise, because you literally want to train your brain. Okay, time to decrease cortisol, time to increase melatonin. So whatever your body feels safe, and then that is going to help your cortisol levels decrease. So if you're wondering what your cortisol profile is, let's definitely test it. Let's look and see if you have high cortisol, low cortisol, flat rhythms, nighttime cortisol elevation, so we can allow your treatment to be targeted to what exactly your cortisol profile is. So your adrenal glands are incredibly resilient. The body is always trying to move back to balance when we provide it the right signal. So we have to give it the building blocks in order to make cortisol properly. My goal for you is that we have consistent sleep, stable blood sugar throughout the whole day. We can regulate our stress in a way where we have the highest cortisol in the morning and then the lowest cortisol at night, and that we always have a healthy circadian rhythm. So it's not that we can never be stressed. Of course, we're going to be stressed. The goal is not to not be stressed, but the goal is to have healthy ways of managing our stress so we can get proper cortisol curves, and that we're not throwing our cortisol curves out of whack. So small daily habits can often create our biggest hormonal shifts over time. So commit to these habits, put in the work, and you'll notice that you have more energy day over day over day. I know you can do it. I'm rooting for you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and join us on the next episode of the Hormone Café.